guys, so sorry. Traffic was awful on the expressway. I'm not usually this side of town this time of day, so I didn't think to get an earlier start.
I'm sorry, but you are...
Oh, Leslie Kemp. Brittany's father.
Oh, I see. I apologize, Mr. Kemp. I wasn't expecting a...
Leslie, please. And yes, Brittany's adopted. We don't think much about skin color at home anymore, so we sometimes forget that others do.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kemp. I didn't mean to assume.
Of course not. We realize we're not like most families. We tend to eschew stereotypes, race, gender, you know.
Eschew?
Yes, eschew. It means to, let's see. Forgo or refrain from.
I know what eschew means. I was just... Oh, the time. I do need to leave by 7:45, so if you don't mind...
Of course, same here. My wife and I just started, if you can believe it, country line dancing lessons. Oh, it's so out of character for us. I'm not usually dressed like such a buckaroo. Sorry. No. What seems to be the problem?
Yes, well, we're studying political upheavals and revolutionary documents. Martin Luther's 95 Theses, the Communist Manifesto, Declaration of Independence, etc. The class was to write and perform a monologue based on a revolutionary. Brittany chose two characters, Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings.
Sally who?
Sally Hemings. The slave Jefferson slept with and impregnated.
Impregnated? Oh my. Didn't know that happened. Was that new?
Regardless, her performance featured her as Jefferson, waving an empty liquor bottle around, shouting about being drunk with power and entitlement. And then she shone a flashlight into the eyes of the audience.
Illuminating their ignorance.
Brittany. Go on.
She then proceeded to flagellate the audience, yelling, "Slaves! Slaves!"
Oh dear. Flagellate. With what?
The flag, Mr. Kemp. The flag.
I couldn't find a whip. Plus it was symbolic.
She then announced that she was changing characters, and she was no longer Thomas Jefferson, but his concubine, Sally Hemings. She chanted, "Naked is free! Naked is free!" And then there was something of an undressing.
An undressing.
Yes, a disrobing.
As in naked?
Naked.
Brittany.
So you can see why it's so concerning.
Oh, yes. Very serious, Miss, Sorry, I didn't catch your...
Mrs. Ball?
Yes, and your first name.
Mrs. Ball.
I see. So, what do you have to say for yourself? Naked at school. Thank God it's all girls.
I was making a statement.
Oh yeah, statement. Naked is free, whatever that means.
Mr. Kemp, we at Holy Cross try to take as a progressive a view of the arts and free speech as we can. But there are limits and standards by which we must abide.
Can I at least explain why I did it?
No explanation is necessary, Miss
No,
Kemp.
please. If you don't mind. Go ahead, sweetheart.
I wanted to show Hemings' innocence, that she was looked at by Jefferson not as a person, but as a sexual property, and by being naked, I represented the native purity of the land, and that Jefferson's taking of her for sex symbolized the imperialist rape of North America and the decimation of its virtuous population. By being naked, I showed that as an artist, I have nothing to hide, and I offer my vulnerability as collateral for my convictions.
Well, that all sounds valid and compelling to me.
Mr. Kemp,
The metaphors all make sense as far as I'm concerned. But do they not to you?
her metaphors aren't the point. She took her clothes off in the middle of class. Are you not the least bit alarmed by this?
Well, I was when I thought it might have been gratuitous. But it all sounds artistically motivated.
Motivated? It was public indecency.
This is a private school, actually.
Oh, young lady, I assure you
If you
that...
don't mind, before this gets too heated, let's just pause a moment. Perhaps my wife should be included in this conversation.
Oh, is she here?
Oh my god, here we go.
Yes, she's just waiting outside. She tends to be much more conservative than I about things like this. I think she'll lend some moderation to the issue.
Well then, by all means.
I'll just go get her. Oh, a word of warning. Her appearance. Well, the resemblance is startling.
The resemblance. Mr. Kemp!
Oh, please call me Leslie. I'll just get her.
The resemblance.
Now you've done it.
Done what? And what did your father mean about some resemblance?
You're gonna wish my dad had stuck around.
Stuck around.
Hello. You must be Mrs. Ball.
Excuse me?
I'm Leslie. You've already met my husband?
Leslie.
Yes, Leslie. Same first name. Makes it easy to remember around the house.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
There's nothing to understand. You met my father, he left the room to get my mother, and here she is.
But he...
She, Mrs. Ball, I promise this will all be easier if you understand that this is my mother, and my father's out in the hall waiting.
Yes, Mrs. Ball. I'm told with some frequency that my husband and I look a great deal alike, but I assure you I'm Brittany's mother. My husband Leslie may have informed you that we tend to eschew traditional gender roles in the family. Now, Leslie informs me that there is some controversy over nudity in the classroom.
Yes, well, there are standards by which we, Mr. Kemp, is that a floral skirt you're wearing?
Yes. Leslie and I are taking line dancing lessons. And that's Mrs. Kemp. Leslie, if you don't mind.
Yes, but Mr. Kemp, Miss Leslie, whatever. This is all inappropriate. I don't know what you two have cooked up here, but this is a school, not some circus sideshow. There is a serious behavioral concern here that needs to be addressed by a serious, legitimate adult.
Well, Brittany's grandmother's out in the car. Shall I get her?
That won't be necessary. Now, the issue is nudity, which is an inappropriate expression of whatever it was Brittany was trying to express.
Is there something wrong with the human form? Is nakedness not the pinnacle of liberty? Should Brittany be ashamed of her body, Mrs. Ball?
She should be ashamed of her behavior. And so should you, for making a mockery of this issue and of this school in that ridiculous getup.
Well, I certainly did not come here to be insulted. Come, Brittany.
On Monday, I'll speak with our principal about Brittany's future at Holy Cross. It may be that she and you would be more comfortable with her in another environment.
Well, finally something we agree on. Let's go.
No,
Excuse me?
I don't want to go to another school. I want to stay here.
Why in the world after all of this?
Because I believe in my art, and I'm not ashamed of my body, or you, or Dad, or Grandma. And I have something to say about history and the world, and it's worth listening to. If I leave, this school becomes less different, more the same. And the more we're happy being just the same, the more we strengthen our resolve to not understand one another.
Well said. Mrs. Ball, if you would like to avoid an enormous lawsuit that I am willing to bankroll...
Lawsuit? For what?
Racism! My daughter is black, just like that poor prostitute Thomas Jefferson defiled, and I will...
Sally Grimmett wasn't a prostitute.
I couldn't possibly care less. She was exploited, and I will not have my daughter exploited, sexually, academically, or otherwise because of the color of her skin.
Miss, whatever. This issue has nothing to do with race.
It most certainly does.
Actually, it doesn't.
No? I've got my eye on you anyway, Mrs. Ball. I strongly consider that you reconsider this expulsion business. I'm very litigious. Remember, you, racism, lawsuit, headlines. Let's roll. Your first name's Lucille?
Yes.
Lucille Ball?
Yes. My maiden name was Snodgrass.
And not a shred of a sense of humor.
Naked is free, Mrs. Ball.
Naked is free. Interesting.
I forgot my props.
It was hot in here. I was just getting some air.
They are slaves. See?